Okay, rules for the students. Respect your schoolmaster, obey him and accept his punishments. Be silent during classes. Do not talk. Those are the old rules from the 1913.
First written 100 years ago, these rules have been adapted and changed over the decades. But in the mid-40s, that rule about talking was still in effect, and Norma Bevan remembers disobeying it.
I had 100 lines to do. So I took the chalk and I put it between my fingers and did 3 lines at a time and got caught. So I had 300 lines to do.
And it was in this classroom where Norma wrote those 300 lines over 60 years ago.
Basically what you see in here is the way it was. We had lunch inside and then we were put outside until the bell rang. It was quite a privilege to be allowed to ring that bell. If you were good, you got to do that. We learned to write with a nib pen and ink. The ink well would sit in this hole here. And if you had a boy behind you and he didn't watch, he would dip your hair in the ink. And then by the time you got up, you had blue ink all down your back and, you know.
Norma built these memories of the first 6 years of her schooling here at the Saanichton Schoolhouse, a 2-room school on Mount Newton Crossroads.
This is my sister Vida, my brother Keith, 1937.
Norma was a student at the Saanichton School when it was in its prime, but the school did shut down in the late 70s. But the reason why it's still here today, turning 100 years old, is because of the Saanich Historical Artifact Society.
The school district was looking to build a new school because this one wasn't adequate for what they needed, so they called up and said, we're going to take down or get rid of Saanichton School. Do you guys want it?
Of course they wanted it, especially because most old schoolhouses were being demolished. But to Dave Hopkins, the Society's president, the school was an important addition to their collection of old buildings, steam engines, and cars. But even though it only had to move 5 kilometers, it took years before it found its new home at Heritage Acres.
It took several days for them to get it from Mount Newton Crossroad up through the valley, up past the Prairie Inn, with just minuscule of space. And all these posts, telephone poles and wires had to be disconnected and removed to get it up the hill. I think the whole countryside came out to see that move.
From there it started to move and sat on the other side of the road here for 15 years while we worked at getting funding.
But for people like Dave and Norma, those 15 years of waiting were worth it to maintain this place where memories are only growing more distant.
We get a lot of people come in and they say, oh, I remember being in a school like this. I'm very proud of this school. I have a very fond feeling for this school. Look, Dick. Look, Jane. Look and see. See, baby. See, see. It was all repetitious. That's how we learned to read.
And even as the education system changes, the Saanichton School still stands with a century's worth of stories. In Central Saanich, I'm Jen Muranetz.